greetings. On behalf of W for W Foundation, welcome to another session of Friday Waters. The idea of Friday Waters is to wet the Fridays with fun and yet get fruitful content for the better understanding about the water matters in different possible ways. Friday Waters has water talkies, book reading, thesis club, and water arts. The focus of the water reading club session is to bring author and authors who have written books, novels, comics, etc. on the water matters in order to discuss with them the making of the book, novel or comic and the issues around the subject they have covered in their manuscript. Besides bringing interest in water conversation, the session is also about increasing the outreach of the manuscript in the water networks and also society at large. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava, and today I shall discuss the making of the book, namely Dancing with the River, People and Life on the Chars of South Asia. The book is written jointly by Kuntala Lahiri-Dutt and Gopa Samantha. And to do the honor, we have Gopa Samantha, who is co-author of this 2013 published book by Yale University Press. Before I invite Gopa, let me just briefly introduce Gopa, and I'm going to put the detailed biography in the chat box. Professor Gopa Samantha teaches geography at the University of Bardhaman. Her research interest cuts across the fields of water, urban, and gender studies. She engaged in different research projects with collaborators from multiple disciplines funded by institutions in India and abroad, all over the world. Water governance in similar of Indian cities. She has contributed immensely through publishing journal articles and book chapters. And to reach the wider audience, she has contributed highly to popular writing in Bengali language through news articles and other popular magazines and articles. She has books on her credit, 4 books, and also has authored 4 popular books in Bengali literature. So thank you, Gopa, for accepting our invite. Let me just first invite you to share your initial thoughts, or let me say just an opening remarks on the conceptualization and making of the book, and what inspired you and Kuntala to really go for this wonderful manuscript. And then later, I'm going to dig into the details of the manuscript. Over to you, Gopa. Thank you so much for coming to our session.
Thank you very much, Mansee, for inviting me for this book talk. Yeah, it's Kuntala, my co-author in this book. She used to be my teacher at the University of Bardhaman during my master's class. And later on, she was my supervisor too for my PhD. And in 2002, Kuntala was moving to Australia National University after I finished my PhD. And I stayed back here at Bardhaman. And then we were looking for some collaborative work to carry forward. Before that, Kuntala was spending a lot of time in Bangladesh for different works. And she got 2 books on Chars of Bangladesh. And when she was leaving, she handed over those books to me. And she told me, Gopa, you can think about if we can do something together on this topic. You know, Bangladesh, Char was always in the center stage of research and writing in Bangladesh. But when we started working on this book project, that's Chars of River Damodar, we didn't come across any research on Indian chars, on any rivers. So it was like an empty field for us for academic research and writing. And then we started this field work. And initially, we didn't think about writing a book, actually. We started our research and we came to know about this entirely new world. It was absolutely new world to us, and we were looking into different things. We were getting accustomed to this new world, I would say. And initial project was to write a paper. And then we started doing the field work. We dig deeper into the socio-political, economic conditions of these people and their understanding, their different way of seeing things, a completely different perception from the mainstream people like us. That fascinated us. And we went on writing a couple of papers, but finally from 2004, we started working on this book manuscript. And we really talked in many places about in seminars and conferences about our work, ongoing work. But actually, we took a really long time to finalize the manuscript. We started in 2004 and we finished around 2010 or 11. So it was our long encounter with this chore, the world of river islands. And yeah, so we went on getting new ideas and new perception and new ways of seeing things from this ethnographic research. Our research was more ethnographic, and it was really based on in-depth empirical research. So that was the beginning of, yeah, I would say.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much to give us some insights on where did it start. And it's always good to know when you write a manuscript based on number of articles which was planned. So because then you have fresh thoughts and, it's more robust literature. So coming to the basics of the book, before I invite to engage on the real content of it, the book Dancing with the River People and Life on the. Now I learned from you that you have to pronounce it as Chars. So I was calling it as Chars. So Chars of South Asia. The book published first by Yale University in 2013 has also various versions in the later part of its publication. And the book is now available in Amazon and Flipkart. I'm going to share the link also in the chat box very soon. So coming to the brief content of the book, and as you have already mentioned that it's an ethnographic study, basically you were there to experience what was going on, and getting us the intimate glimpse into the microscopic or microcosmic world of hybrid landscape. And we are going to discuss about, because you have a very elaborate discussion on hybrid landscape, the conceptual idea of it as well, and focusing on this whole idea, the part land, part water, low-lying sandy masses that exist within the riverbeds of floodplains of Bengal. And beautifully, you have also made a disclaimer in the beginning that when you are going to mention Bengal, it's the United Bengal, so it's both sides of the Bengal. That also as a disclaimer comes out very clear in the morning, in the beginning, unless and until you are specifying which part of the Bengal you're talking about. The book definitely shares, because of your ethnographic work, real life examples, and also linking it with the metaphors. So which was very interesting to read for me. It took some time to really understand some of the things, but beautiful Bengali words and all things are coming in there. The study is basically a human habitation, and where it's between the space where it is neither land or water, or it is both land and water. And it gives us a lot of thinking to understand what happens when people live in such vulnerable conditions. The book is 297 pages, I will say, at length, and with 8 chapters. And I'm going to ask you questions through chapters. And so coming to chapter 1, which is introduction, of course, to give us an idea what is Chars, shores, where land floats on water, as you write in the chapter. The chapter 2 is Chor Jage, a char rises. So you are already bringing a lot of Bengali, I will say, words into your chapter titles as well. Then chapter 3 is very interesting, again, controlling the river to free up land. So we, in a modern scholarship, we are calling it some kind of grabbing. Then chapter 4 is Bhitor o Bahir Kotha, so inside and outside stories of shores and the mainland. Then chapter 5 is Silent Footfalls, peopling the Chars, so how people are there. So that was very interesting for me, and also personally for me it was a obvious chapter to understand, because the social aspect was very so much intertwined. Then living with the risk beyond vulnerability and security is discussed in chapter 6. 7th is on livelihoods defined by water, Nodir Shathe Bash. Then last chapter is on living on shores, drifting with rivers. So let me just now start immediately as a layperson, my questions to you on this whole idea of the land water discrete, the part land, part water. Please elaborate a bit on this whole vulnerable social ecological landscape or waterscape. I don't know. How would you look at that? Please, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Manshi. Thank you very much for meticulously reading our book. And it's really sometimes tough to understand, but you made an excellent reach in that. And so I would say that in the beginning we tried to deal with the theoretical foundation of the book. And actually, Kuntala and me, we both
Yes.
are from the discipline of geography. And in geography, with the traditional
Hmm.
way of looking at land and water are completely kind of binary. Nature culture is the same thing, like, completely different and discrete, isolated ideas, and they don't talk to each other. There is no fluidity in between. But when we started to work on this chore, and actually, if we translate it into English, then it is called river island, right? But it is not always island. Sometimes these are attached to the bank also. So we prefer to keep the chore as the term, because chore includes both the island condition and also the attached sandbars to the bank. And then we tried to see that chores are always changing. You can call it a land, but after 10 years, completely there was a land, and it's and the chore is washed away, so now you have the water only. So it's these are kind of moving humanscape, I would say, rather than waterscape or landscape. So these physical areas like chores,
Very well
that's are
put.
moving, and people are also moving with the chores. So it's kind of like a extreme fluidity we could understand in those areas. And we thought that, where do we put it? And the interesting thing is, in our initial articles, we use sometimes the word chore land, and then we reflects back and we
Yes.
thought that, no, we probably cannot use the land. Then we also fix it to the category of land. So we left that land from the chores. So we use the term chore to make sure that we don't fit into the binary categorization of land and water. And it's not about chore. In
Land.
different parts of the world, there are areas which are partly inundated during the rainy season or flood, and then other time it's a land, like Everglades in USA, or there are many other places around the world which doesn't belong to any fixed category of land and water. So we try to think that chore is an excellent metaphor to challenge that binary and kind of categorization of land and water in a completely different category of things to look into. And usually there is no, as we fix these categories, and then we don't, even the academic discourses, we don't cross the limit much. So we talk about land, and then we fix ourselves in that category. When we talk about water, then again we fix into the that category. But land and water, we it's in a continuous negotiation, and we always need to look at, and we have
Yes.
to cross the boundaries many times. And we also, probably you have read the book, so you know that we did bring in the concept of hybridity. So hybrid geography,
Yes.
there is yeah. So hybridity is the concept is coming from other disciplines, social sciences, and we have referred all those earlier works. And we were thinking that, okay, this is also kind of, so there is a hybridity, there is a fluidity which we can use, and chore is an excellent metaphor for understanding that hybridity, and to cross the boundaries. Even the academic discourses that fixity is a problem. So we
Yes.
tried to intervene into that. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, you have a full chapter on how land and whole administrative process goes into, giving some rights to people of. You have used a beautiful word for the inhabitants of Chors as Choruas. Am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah, Chorua. Yeah.
Chorua. Okay.
Mm.
So the river gypsies, as you have written in the book. It's beautifully written. So mainly more of nomadic, not by choice, but because of the conditions of river and water. So and you talk about both sides of Bengal, and looking at how shores are also regulated or administered in different ways. And you have a full list of acts and policies and programs which have been implemented. That is in the later part of the book. But let me just come to a small question. I'm going to go through small questions from each chapter so that we can open the forum, because otherwise one chapter itself can have many questions. So I'm just keeping it simple for all of us. So from chapter 2, where I see that you are really kind of delineating your area of study, where you eventually get into Damodar chores, है ना? So
Yeah.
before that, you do talk about shores in India, basically the delta of the Indian side and the delta of the Bangladesh side. So I'm just curious. I mean, in terms of their physiographic nature, in terms of the Chorua's life and challenges. What kind? Because you have been there on the field on both sides of the life of the chore. So could you please share some of your it must be nostalgic for you now, but some of your experiences of the similarities between, because after all this was one Bengal at that time, at some time. And when you studied the some similarities and some differences, and that too, if riverscape was influencing that difference, or there is something more than that which influences the differences between the two countries of Charua.
Yeah, actually, we didn't do much field work in Bangladesh, but we are accustomed with the literature and chores
Yes,
from Bangladesh. We passed
yes,
through, we crossed them, we visited them, but
yes,
not empirically rooted field research,
yes.
kind of. But the difference is in like Damodar is, we have made it very clear that Damodar chores are completely different from Bangladesh chores. In
Yes,
fact, Bangladesh is more
yes,
controlled by the riverscape than in case of Damodar, we would say. And in that case, Bangladesh actually, the chores are more fragile, more vulnerable. These are active delta part, and it also happens in Sundarban.
mm,
In active
mm,
delta part, if you go to Ganga Delta, GBM Delta, and Ganga Brahmaputra Delta, actually, if you look at the whole delta together, in the active part of the delta, you will see that there are a lot of changes happening in those chore areas. You know that some of the chores of Sundarban are getting submerged underwater
yes.
because of the climate,
Climate change.
yeah, and sea level rise. Ghoramara is one kind of island which is, and also in Bangladesh, even that in Bangladesh, that they are using those river islands which are at the forefront of the Bay of Bengal. They're raising the embankments, and they are resettling the refugees, like Rohingya refugees in a chore called Bhasan Chor. So these are continuously changing boundaries, and continuously in flux. I would say that they are changing continuously their location within the waterscape. And in case of Damodar, it was like, I won't say, we won't use the term permanent, but kind of a little more permanent than the active delta, the chores of active delta. So here, the dynamics, the people's perception and their way of seeing things are a little bit different. There are a lot of literature and also research that if the chore is completely flooded during the rainy season, and the boundaries are washed away, the land boundaries are washed away, then every year there is a case of
Yes.
Chorjage, new demarcation of boundaries, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fights among groups of people who try to grab that land, kind of thing. That doesn't happen here. That we made clear in our book that in case of Damodar, it is a kind of relatively different physiography or physical landscape. It's a bit different, that we can say.
So, uh, so are you trying to say when we get into more closer, because you also make this mainland and closer to the, to the water side, and how the dynamics changes, especially the land dynamics, because property rights and all those things come into play, the permanence, the livelihood attached to the land, because there is very good description on livelihood, how people have multiple and diverse livelihood depending on the seasons and things like that. So, do I understand it correctly when I was reading your chapter 2, that in case of the riverine ecosystem, like in case of Damodar, as you mentioned, there is little bit more permanence in terms of land holdings of the shore, and even have settled plan for their as compared to the coastland choruas. Am I understanding it right? Just a clarification.
Yeah. It's a kind of like as you read the book, you know that these people are the people we are talking about living in Damodar Chars. Even these are all Bangladeshi people in most cases, except a few
Yes,
few people from
yes,
Bihar who
yes,
were also boatmen and
indigenous people.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
here what
Bihar
we
and Odisha. You mentioned Bihar and Odisha, है ना?
yeah,
हाँ,
yeah. So so the
हाँ,
thing is, the difference is the way they see. Actually, I would like to give one example, like one statement of one of our research participants. These people were saying that they were looking for
हम्म,
land and trying to find some areas. Even chore is always finding a chore and grabbing some areas,
okay,
foothold in the chore was their first priority in life. Because one of our research participants, he told us that Didi, we didn't know anything, like even we could not ride a bicycle, but we knew the rivers. we
हम्म,
under, we understand the
हम्म,
rivers, and we know how to raise crops. We know how to make even a
हम्म,
sandy chore into a fertile land. So we always looked for a land where we can raise crop, and we know that soil. We understand that soil. We understand the river. Because probably Mansi, you know that the refugee resettlement policies in Bengal, it had a
yes,
lot of
yes,
coercive policies,
yes,
like pushing people to take it to
yes,
Dandakarano or to Andaman. So these people were
yes,
desperate, and they were leaving these refugee colonies and shibir, we would say, that temporary makeshift arrangement
yes,
for their stay. And some of these people were in a place called Mankor in Bardhaman. There was a big colony there for keeping these people in hold before placing them somewhere else. So these a group of desperate people were looking through. They were walking kilometers after kilometers near the river. They were looking for a kind of land where they can settle in. And as we have narrated their stories, and as we could retrieve from the people who were elderly, who did that, we got interview for some from with some people who were from there from the beginning, and who tried actually to look for these lands. So that is a kind of, so Chor is a preferred place for these people, even they are coming from the Bangladesh, for some reason. One is that their own understanding of the world is related to rivers and chores and these kinds of land.
yes,
And on top of that, another advantage for them was these mainland people were not looking at the lands which are within the boundaries of the river. Because Bardhaman
mm-hmm.
was a very rich agricultural land, fertile, and agriculture
Yes,
was really even during the Maurya period. You know that It was
mm,
in the Mughal period also. It was one of the estate where from the Mughal emperors could earn a lot of revenue. So that
mm,
also another reason that these people tried to sneak into these areas where they are not spotted by other people easily, so that they can make their own kind of housing and establishment without much protest or resistance from the local people. Yeah.
mm, mm. Yeah, very interesting, because actually in chapter 3 you come out with a lot of these content in terms of controlling the river to free up the land, and you do
Yes.
talk about how the separation and emergence of land and water shapes the socio-economic aspects of the original owners. You use that word original owners, and with respect to Damodar River, because as you rightly mentioned, it's also your main study area, but it is also one of the richest ecosystem in that whole region. And how the original owners and the Choruas perceived as infiltrates, for that matter, and also coming from all parts of even outside India as well, mostly from Bangladesh, and even there is a mention of Myanmar briefly I saw. And a lot of acts and policies for safeguarding the rights of the original owners, but at the same time humanitarian ways of accommodating the migrants coming in or then sending back. And one of the act which caught my attention was the Bada Act, or Bengal Alluvian and Diluvian Act, which you have elaborated at length with respect to Damodar. And of course, there are many more of these acts, policies, and programs which you have mentioned. More, and the whole political arrangement in the state is very much defined by the way how migrants are looked at and how original people of this region are looked at, particularly after partition of Bengal, west of East Bengal or Bangladesh from Pakistan. Things changed very drastically, and in India, Bangladesh has a very different dynamics ever since then. So I'm just keen to understand maybe one or two of those uh, current acts or policies or programs which are seriously influencing in a positive sense the lives of Choruas. Original owners we can understand, they will be considered as same as any other Indian citizens law of the land. But these dynamism, I mean, what kind of current arrangements we have in the country? And I'm talking about the West Bengal part of it, the Bengal, not the whole Bengal as such.
Yeah, the thing is, there are a lot of debates around this, refugee infiltrators.
Yes,
These had become in the
yes,
forefront of politics in Bengal, and
yes.
but the thing is, what we try to dig into, and what we got from our field research, that when you initially ask somebody
Hmm.
who is Hindu, they will tell you that because of the religious persecution, we had to move to this part of the world. We had to cross the boundary. But it's like,
Yes.
you ask somebody initial question,
Hmm.
then it's like that. But when you try to dig deeper into, you make a conversation over a longer period of time and try to understand from a very different angle, then at the end of the day you will see that it is not always the persecution, religious persecution story. So in fact, and another point we have brought in our book, that probably you have read, that all these people who are living in Chars are Nomoshudros. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term. So Nomoshudros are actually
Hmm.
Bengali Dalits.
Yes, I
No?
am.
So they were at the absolutely
Hmm.
lower
I am.
rung hierarchy of the social hierarchy of the caste, yeah, of the Hindus. So these Namashudras were not even in a good state in Bangladesh. So they were oppressed by the British caste Hindus simultaneously oppressed by the Muslims. So they were not only oppressed by the Bangladeshi Muslims, so they were also oppressed by the Bangladeshi higher caste Hindus. So these Namashudras actually we took longer time to understand this Namashudra dynamics, this caste dynamics and after a
Mm-hmm.
longer period of time of doing that research, we try to understand what happened, why these all these people are Namashudras, and we are not finding any other, like when you start the caste dialogue, so they said that we are at the lower rung of
Mm-hmm.
the hierarchy, and we try to escape both kinds of oppression, and also we always knew that there are more opportunities on the other side of the border. If you consider that period, then
Other side.
india was in a better position. Like, people from India, they move to where, you know they go to US, they go to Europe
Yes.
for a good fortune. So for
Yes.
that purpose also many people crossed border.
Mm.
And we have narrated those stories, like, somebody is coming and trying to find a piece of land, and probably build a small hut and then go back and bring other kins and relatives. And another story you have got, like, when you go to one single chore, you will see that all the people are telling you, where from have you come? Na Dhaka Jila. Another chore you move into, all the people are
Yes.
from Khulna.
Huh.
So the kinship, the
Khulna.
yeah. So you see that always that kinship, the helping the other villagemen. So even when they are changing their locations and moving to the other part of the border, there is a kind of, they build their own territory. Like, they don't like Khulna people to settle
Ghetto.
in near the
Like a
Dhaka people.
ghetto.
Yeah, they are also
Mm.
building their own ghettos. Like we see that
Yes.
in US, one city you will see that
Yes.
Chinatown, India town kind of. So it's the
Yes.
same case we spotted here in the chart.
Yes. Yes.
That was
Yes.
fascinating. That was fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. Because in the next chapter, when you're talking about Bhitor or Bahir Katha, you actually highlight these things. I mean, how located at the margins of the mainland, the church remain at the periphery of the social, political, and economic process.
Yeah.
And the whole effort by the government, and I mean, maybe we are not discussing Bangladesh effort today, but looking at our own side also, there have been a substantial government's effort for rural development through number of projects and schemes which are pursued. You know, so if you give us some example, maybe one is also enough, how or whether there were efforts to integrate them into the mainland people, or whether there were not much effort done during your field work. Would you like to throw some light on that?
Yeah, there were efforts to
Yes.
help them through the
Mm.
government schemes. Like,
Mm.
you will see that somewhere there is a school, there is a small health center,
Mm-hmm.
the roads are being constructed, but
Mm.
sometimes you will see that the effort is more from the people themselves. Like, they
Uh-huh.
are
So
building a
commons.
yeah, they
Uh,
are building a road, so they
uh,
are volunteering their labor.
mm,
And but
mm,
probably the government is giving the support of, making it
uh,
concrete or something like that. So I won't
mm,
we won't say that that it's not that government didn't support them at all, but not like that of mainland, because these lands are also
of
fragile,
course.
you know so they
Yes.
can they cannot spend much on the infrastructure, considering
Yes.
that that piece of land can go underwater anytime.
Yeah,
So
anytime. Yeah,
yeah.
that I think the physical vulnerability adds to the social
Yes.
vulnerability, and then further goes to other vulnerabilities, which is very
Yes.
well captured actually in chapter 6, I will say. But I will have a very small question from chapter 5, where you talk about silencing footfalls or peopling the chars, and we have already discussing about it, the migration process, and how that influenced the contemporary social and political context of Bengal. But because you have studied Damodar in detail, and I know you are right now also doing a lot of work in that region, I just want to understand. It's again a little bit of, let me say, naive or nasty question, because we are in the state of voting, and we are expecting a lot of political ups and downs. Does the life and livelihoods of people of the region, in Damodar region or river basin, and by the way, you have beautiful diagrams of the river and explaining the shore. It was so simple graphics to understand. But coming back to the question, do you think the lives and livelihoods are influencing the local politics of the Damodar area? It's not captured in your book, but I'm just out of curiosity. As I said, it's a naive question to ask.
I don't think that if you consider the proportion of people living in the Chars, that's the
Hmm.
really meager in
Huh.
considering the Damodar entire Damodar region, you know. So
Huh. Huh. Huh.
I do not think that there is much in the politics to control, because considering, if you consider how many people are there, how many votes will be cast by them, so
Yes.
in that proportion it's not huge that we can get but the thing is, these refugees who are during our field work was we finished our fieldwork, I think, 2011, and there was a turnover in the political situation in Bengal. So
Yes.
after that,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, after that,
Very
so
big
it is
turnover.
just a coincidence. It is just a coincidence, and we thought
Huh.
that refugees were, if we exclude one or two cases, like this resentment of pushing back the
Hmm.
refugees, in case of Sundarban,
Hmm.
that one incident happened, and people are
Hmm.
still talking about it. But in other
Yeah.
areas, refugees were not so unwelcome in Bengal, even in the Bengal politics. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what do I feel
Yes.
that, again, if you think that, if you bring in the politics and mold it in a way to give it a religious connotation to it, then probably these Bangladeshi people who think that they have left their land and other things only because of the religious persecution, although that is not the real story all the time, but because it is in the common dialogue, so that might be an influencing factor in Bengal politics. But again, it's NRC and other things are coming up, so there are a lot of things are in discussion. I'm not
Yes.
sure that how it is going to handle the situation, or to what extent it will have an impact in the electoral politics. But I think that during the time we did the field work, refugees had stake on Bengal politics.
Wonderfully put. Wonderfully put. Because when now I don't belong to Bengal, our West Bengal, but every time I go and I meet some of the people who still call themselves that they belong on that side of the Bengal, and they do carry all kinds of citizenry identity they that is required here, and there is an urge to return to their mainland, as in on the other side. Uh, so that is very interesting for me to really look at how they look at lives, and the fact that they have some kind of a semi-nomadic life also makes it very vulnerable to them, to their all kinds of I will say social security, even other security to attain from any system for that matter. So that's very beautifully captured in your chapter 6 with living with risk. Before I question to and move to chapter 6, may I encourage to all the participants to really put their questions and comments in the chat box, or even raise your hand and please get on board to the discussion, because it will be wonderful to hear your voices as well. You know, and I'm very open
Yeah.
about it, because I have only two more questions. So may please raise your hand, and then I'm going to invite you to put your questions. Okay.
Uh,
Mm.
Good afternoon.
Do you
Nice
have
to
any
meet you.
question? I see
Namaste.
someone has unmuted.
Yeah.
Please, please,
Uh, Good
please, please,
afternoon. May I talk? Good afternoon.
please go ahead, sir. Mm.
Yeah. Congratulations. Firstly, I sorry I became late to join this session. Very interesting. I'm from Kathmandu. I'm Mandev Sigdel, and I'm very much interested on that book. And congratulations to Madam for her book and for her wonderful research work. I belong to Center
Thank
for
you.
Policy Studies and Rural Development at Kathmandu. I recently
Ji,
visited
sir.
some of the place,
Ji, sir.
Sinduli, Kabri Palanchok, and Dhulikhel, like, hilly region. And the women are, uh, empowered,
Mm-hmm.
empowering gradually, and they have many problems. After, Maoist movement, the political empowerment of women, it intensified, by this time. And now the participation of women, in constituency, local constituency, and, national constituency, it is at increasing trend. But women, they have some problem, we have patriarchal society still, and male dominated, in countryside, women have to bear from house to chauka chula, all that, very situation. We have to erase all this, and I think, the forthcoming planning and programs should be more confined with indigenous community, and particularly women, the women of even Sindhu Palchok, they have to walk for
Very
a
well put.
long, even they have a river, big river, perennial river. They have to walk for a couple of hours to get the water, This sort of situation that is happening in Nepal. Well,
Yes,
even though they are gradually empowering, and they should be access of, credit and other plus approach, as of Bangladesh did for empowering
yes,
women, through microfinance. And this is much from my part. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
yes. Yes, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And in fact, in the book, I'm jumping before Gopa, because I'm really happy to have read this book. Because, and let me also at this point in time let both of us thank Vishal Narayan to connect both of us, and grateful to him. He's being my mentor for quite some time. By the way, sir, the Gopa and Kuntala's book also captures the gender aspect when they talk about commons in chapter 6 and 7. So let Gopa speak about in with reference to the mountain and also now the estuarine ecosystem,
Yeah, the
the
thing
role of
is,
women.
Sar was talking empowerment of women and in the politics. So I would say that I have another book with Ria Banerjee, and the book is talking about negotiating local terrain. It is like, urban governance and women completely. So it is on the councillors, how they're
Mhm.
gaining empowered, and how they're using their political power, what are the challenges, etc., etc. But I'm not getting into that book now. Here, coming back to this book, yes,
I will
we
invite you on Monday. I will invite you on Monday to discuss that book.
okay, so maybe that's a different issue. So we come back to this book. Actually, when we tried, actually, as I said at the beginning, that when we tried to dig deeper into this microcosm of world, called Char, we like, numerous issues were being unfolded before us. So we were thinking
Mhm.
that initially we didn't think about this gender aspect of livelihood, etc. But after
Mhm.
these enormous
Yes.
volume of, interview and field notes and their statements and narratives, and we thought that we better bring in that gender question here. And also we had
Mhm.
another article on women headed households. We tried to understand how they adjust with
Mm.
this extremely vulnerable conditions in chores. So
Mm.
their perception, I still remember that one girl, young girl, she was like newly married, and she came from another chore. That is also an interesting observation there, that most of the marriages happen in between choruas, like people from other chores, because it's
Okay.
probably their understanding that people from mainland will not be able to accommodate in the world of chores. So the arranged marriage were
Sure.
mostly in between the people from the different chores. So but that girl told us that she moved from Bangladesh, and she told us that I don't consider this as home. I said, why? No, this is not a home. We are living on the river. It's terribly cold during winter, terribly hot during, sand over sand, when sun reflects like 42 degree, 44 degree. The day it was like, 44 degree to
Yes.
45 degree in Bardhaman for 1 month. And I was thinking about how people are surviving in chore areas. Like, daytime, the heat will be cumulative effect of sands and hot sands, and probably it reaches near
And humidity. Yeah.
no, that was not amazing. In April, there was no humidity, because it was like, we were feeling like we are in Rajasthan, or in Delhi. It was dry heat completely. So we didn't get
Dry.
rain, because we didn't have much water vapor in the cloud. So the thing is, that girl was saying that I do not consider this as kind of, it's a home, because what I miss that, she was from a village. She was from a mainland village, you know and the world is different, because I would
Yes.
say that if you consider, when we also tried to get, like, time use survey, how they use the time, the men and women in
Yes.
chores, and we were seeing that they start their day as soon as the sun comes up, like, early morning, and they go to bed at 7 o'clock. That girl
Yes.
was not used to that rhythm, diurnal range of this life. And she was puzzled with that also, that, it's not like nothing is there, is absolutely dark, and when their sun goes down, we just we enter the house, and we just eat, and we go to sleep, and so much work to do, etc., etc. So, and there are many stories, you have read it, so you know that Gandhari Dhali was narrating how
Ah,
he used to catch a fish from the river bare hand, without
fish.
any tools. So these are stories, and probably we have narrated, you have read it, we have narrated how the contribution of women in the livelihood basket, like, that they plant,
Yes. There's a
they
good
plant
description of it.
fruit trees, and not only market gardening, but also fruit trees in the courtyard, so that they can use it to supplement their curry making, and etc. And the cattle, how they rear the cattle, and how they consider that cattle rearing is so much important in their lives, because that is their financial backup, like, when they have suddenly fall into something that they need immediate cash, so they can just sell their goat, or hen, or get some money to as backup. So these there are enormous stories of women and men in that chapter, and we try to understand how the lives of chores are also being gendered, you know and how the perceptions also being
Yes.
gendered to some extent, you know so yeah.
Yes. I think that's very well, yeah, very well captured in chapter 7, when you're talking about livelihood defined by water. And the Bengali part of it is Nodir Shate Bash, where you highlight the chores as commons in the subsistence of the poor, and making choices, where you also give a very elaborate description of choices in terms of livelihood basket, why they are going for multiple options of livelihood because of the uncertainty. And that is also defining their one in one way, their resilience because of their persistence poverty, and that comes out very clear in the way you are giving examples of how people are choosing based on season, based on their capability, based on their affordability, and where you talk about sustainability of livelihoods, to offset risks, ease shocks, and meet contingencies. That comes out very clear. And from fishing to fruits to even saving grains, and all those things come out very clear. So you already discussed about the livelihood basket here, and also talking about the gendered way of looking at livelihoods, and even how governments have been really trying their best to capture the gender aspect of livelihood in many, many policies which are there, which we also see in rest of the country as well in India. I'm going a chapter back here where you talk about living with this risk, and maybe take the question further to chapter 8, which is also the last chapter. So I'm clubbing two chapters to ask a very simple question in looking at the time constraint also. So beyond this vulnerability and security, this fragility, which is inherent in the physical characteristics of this ecology, which also tells us that there is going to be a persistence poverty because of their nomadic nature of the physiography, nomadic nature of the people. Uh, I mean, I would like to understand, apart from the livelihood aspects of it, I'm sure there are cultural aspects which helps these commons, or how as a community, you mentioned about marriage, you also mentioned about how they are forming their little ghettos. I'm sure that is helping them building community resilience for that matter. So if living on Chars is also about drifting with the rivers from time to time, where my question is on two things. First, it's already more than 10 years, I will say 15 years now, the scholarship which you and Kuntala engaged into. So I would like to understand from you any changes in the lives or schemes you see in the area where you have worked on, in terms of policies where they are trying to bring them, give them more security, social security or something. That's one part of the question. And last question from my end for today will be, uh, where do you see the scholarship is going further in the shore commons? So I'm posing both the questions from chapter 6 and 8 so that you can put them together. Thank you, Gopa. I hope it is not too much for you. And let me
No,
take
it's
Sumit
okay.
Adhikari. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. So the thing is, I did visited a lot of times or a couple of times to the chores. In fact, we are indebted to the people of chores for hosting us in a sense that this is a place where you do the field work for whole day there, and you don't have any other means like food or
Mhm.
water, or if you need to go to the toilet. And so we had some people who always helped
Mm.
us. They encouraged us to write about themselves. So after when you finish the work and you have the book, and then
Mm.
also these people are there. So as I am staying here nearer to these places, so I also visit
Mhm.
some time to these people. And yes, social security during this regime also, a lot of social security and kind of all these kinds of, like that there is one scheme called Lokhir Bhandar, etc., kind of social security schemes that West Bengal government has brought in. So these benefits are also reaching them. And these days there are some roads are being constructed, so it's not that they're so isolated. But always these people, what I would like to add, that but these people, they don't see these lands as permanent. They are like prepared. They are prepared that this land might
Yes.
go underwater after a huge flood. So there is always
Mhm.
a change of
Mhm.
people, like they always look for moving to the mainland areas. And they say, as long as we are
So the
here,
nomadicness.
yeah. And it's not, probably they don't, they are not accustomed to the nomadism, I would say. Rather, they dream for a permanent home somewhere in some mainland. So
Permanence.
yeah, they think about, I won't say that bohemianism has been adopted by them. Sometimes they are forced to, that's why they
Yeah,
do. But they
of course.
always look forward to have a permanent home somewhere in a protected, like
I'm sure.
Vitor,
Hmm.
the mainland areas,
Hmm.
not outside the Char.
Hmm.
That means the Vitor, the
Hmm.
protected mainland areas.
Vitor.
So, yeah, Vitor. They call mainland as Vitor. So that is kind of, so they think that we have used the term, another term, probably you have read it and you noticed it already, that we are using the term, not adaptation, but kind of resilience,
Yes.
everyday
Resilience. Yes.
adjustment and adjustment.
Hmm.
When people plan, like, planners always
Hmm.
think in the longer term. They think about, permanent planning, kind of. So they use the term adaptation.
Hmm.
But these people,
Yes.
by they changed our understanding of how they don't see,
Hmm.
they don't think about a long term plan. They don't think about adaptation.
Hmm.
Their simple version
Hmm.
is, with whom we can adapt to. We don't know the mood of the river.
Hmm.
River is moody. It can change
Yeah.
its course anytime. So we
Very well
cannot,
put.
yeah, it cannot be a long term preparation of adaptation with the river. We
Uh,
adjust
and
every
and it
day.
yeah,
And
and it
every
came
day
from the
adjustment.
horse's mouth. So
Yeah. So and the thing is, I would try to quote one of our research participants statement in Bengali, and then I will translate after. They say, আমরা দিদি বেঁচে থাকি কি নিয়ে জানেন? ওই আমরা হচ্ছি হ্যান্ড টু মাউথ। আমরা
hmm.
কাজ করি, কিছু পাই, ওটা নিয়ে খাই। So,
Hi. Hmm.
hand to mouth is a typical kind of actually narrative they use to make it understandable to us that they don't have any kind of long term plan. They always think about daily adjustment, monthly
Hmm.
adjustment. Then they go further. Maybe the next crop. If they have a good fortune, they will get a good crop without much disturbance, kind of.
Hmm.
So always they think about short term adjustment
Hmm.
and with the river. And they always think that we cannot, when we think adaptation, we think about a long term adjustment with the
Yes.
nature. But their
Hmm.
idea, they made us to reconsider that how foolish we are, this intellectually rich
Yeah.
people. We always we think about, we change the nature to some extent so that we can adapt with the nature
Yeah.
permanently, which
And
is
that's the
not the case.
permanence. We are trying to make nature permanent, which is
Permanent.
not happening.
But these people are so intelligent, they don't understand that wrong thing which we carry in our head. So they
I
say
think we are
that,
pretending. We are
yeah,
pretending.
we are pretending that we can change the nature and we can long term resilience and adaptation, kind of. They taught us how to think about, how to change the even the intellectual discourse, how to perceive the
Yes.
nature itself. And they always,
Hmm.
so they use that term, that we hand to mouth daily adjustment. And when probably sometimes we provoke them to consider that, think about that, if the next rainy season and the big flood comes, and your home, probably he that house is on the edge of the chore.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I probably sometimes we see that he is living on the edge. So probably we ask the question, like, what do you think, what is your idea, that if the next flood take away your house? And you know what they say, don't talk about it, it might happen, but now we don't want to think it. When it goes, I will think about it. So
We'll do it.
yeah, so it's not that and I don't have any other means. I don't have a house in mainland areas so that I can move when it goes away. I
Hmm.
have nothing, no means. But we always consider that this flood will not take away our houses.
We
We
pray,
wait
we
for it.
pray.
Yeah.
But I
So
think when you talk about hand to mouth, you have really have this elaborate, persistent poverty issue because of their nomadic nature, because of the vulnerability of them, and as well as the vulnerability of the river. In your work.
yeah, but the thing is, I won't say that it's a persistent poverty. Kind of, it's not that all the people are really in a poor state. There
Okay.
are lots of people who are really, probably, the another thing is, like, if you are talking someone who is a farmer in Punjab, and they say if somebody is having in Chor, if they have five five vighas of land, which is 1.5 acre kind of, they
Hmm.
consider that it's a big landholder.
Yeah.
Now think about the perception. So if
Perspective.
somebody is having a 5 vighas of land, that is like less than even 2 acre, they consider that they are wealthy enough.
Well off.
So it's not that always, the poverty, the way they see the poverty,
It's a relative term. Hmm.
it's a relative term. It's a really
Hmm.
absolutely relative term. Yeah.
Very well put. And I'm happy that they're living by the day, which we have almost forgotten. We have almost in our mind immortalized ourselves, and that's where we are
Yeah, yeah.
almost always looking for the
We are always in
permanent.
problem.
Okay, okay. Let me just invite Sumit to put in his thoughts here, Sumit. And I have heard you on the chat box. I'm going to reach out to you. So, would you like to add something to the discussion, and then we take it further? And any other participant, we are really grateful to you. By the way, we are more than 250 sessions old, one of the longest water conversations running across in the world. And we are very grateful to all our participants and speakers. More than 300 speakers have spoken on our platform. Do visit our website and you will get to know. And if you are interested to be part of our guests, do let us know. All the emails, IDs and everything are there. Sumit, would you like to add something? Please unmute yourself. Okay. Anybody else would like to add something here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Question? Yes, we hear you. Please say.
Yeah, thank you, Gopadi. And I didn't know your
Mansee.
name, and
This is
I didn't see your
Mansee.
name.
Sorry,
Mansi.
this is
Sorry,
Mansee. Yeah.
Mansi. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this, very interesting talk. And I just missed the first part, but in between I joined, and I was hearing both of you. And I know about this book, but you just your last questions. You just mentioned, I was about to ask the same thing. That it's long now. I mean, the book got published in 15 years back now, and so obviously there must have been some changes happened in these shores. So just one single question is coming to my mind is, what is any? I mean, do you have any new knowledge about this regularization of the this land process, in the sense that whether these chores are getting involved in the nearby mojas and all, etc. And as the general elections are happening, whether people have that right to vote.
Hmm.
Thank you, Shumit. Actually, right to vote has nothing to do with you possess some land or not in India. So if you have a voter card, you can vote. So, and most of the people, they have voter card. The people, they have come
Aadhaar
long
card
back.
also.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Aadhaar, voter, and all these cards, they are not like new immigrant, illegal kind of. That is not the case of at least the Chars of Damodar. And
Yeah.
in fact, so it's not that regularization of land is definitely, no piece of land is out of mojas. So either the river or the land is within the
Yes.
mojas, and they change the boundaries. And Mansi has read the book, so Mansi know that even the name like Goitanpur Chor, when we are using the term, actually Goitanpur village is on the other side of the
Other
river.
side.
But actually that name has come from that moja, because the river was on the other side of the
Other
bank,
side. So river
yeah,
is
so
changing
river
course
is
all the
changing
time.
its course within yeah, so mojas are changing and the land boundaries are changing. But in most cases, if, for example, if where there was the original river, that is not under the land categorization, and so that piece of land, they call it a who can produce. There is also land transfer, but there is no registration. What happens
So there's
then?
no registration. Okay.
Actually, no, there is no registration, but there is an adjustment kind of. They use the term dos dolil. What is that?
Okay.
One piece of one stamp paper where they write who is
Understood.
changing hands from one person to the other, and there will be 10 signature of 10 witness. So it's
Okay.
kind of
So
a
it's a seasonal
community.
then. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a
Seasonal.
kind of community adjustment to transfer land from one hand to the other. And I would also like to say that when Mansee proposed me to have a discussion on this book, I said, Mansee, I don't feel like talking about a book which I finished in
Published long back.
2000,
Yes.
a year long back. So then Mansee went on insisting me, Gopa, actually, we didn't know about the book. So why don't you? So finally, thank you, Mansee. Thank you. Actually, I was
Thank
I,
you.
I was not sure the modalities of the conversation, but I like the way you frame the conversation. It's not like that one way of presenting our book. So it's
No.
I love that idea.
Thank you
You
so
you have
much.
read
Yeah.
you have read the book so meticulously, and you frame the questions, and you are asking me the question. So it didn't happen before. So this is a new
Thank
kind
you
of,
so much. We
this
are
is a
Way
W
of
for W
understanding.
Foundation. We are
yeah.
W for W Foundation is
Yes.
meticulously, every session is meticulously designed for our speakers.
Yes. So I'm so happy, and I'm happy that I actually say yes to your second time request. I said okay, I will do
Almost
it,
4 months,
and I would
Gopa.
like to
Almost
thank,
4 months.
yeah, and I would like to thank Vishal also for being in the middle, and because I and Vishal, we know each other for a longer time, and Vishal is working on the water sector, and especially the peri-urban water, and he has long term association with the water research, and very good publication. So I am quite aware of his research and work, and so yeah, it's good. And now what I would like to say that I'm not going back to the field of Damodar Char again, because me with Rakhi Dash is my collaborator in another research. So we are trying to understand a different kind of chores which are extremely fragile, much fragile than Damodar chores where we worked in this book. And you know that there is a Farakka barrage, and after the
Ah,
construction of Farakka barrage, how the total land dynamics, chore land dynamics changed completely. And after that, how these lands have become so fragile, how they are like, they're popping up in one place and then being washed away,
disappearing.
and then you're popping up somewhere else, kind of. So it's a kind of, Raki has made a very nice maps to show that how these things are changing over time, and how people are moving. And we could spot some people, like, during the field work, that they have changed their location for 7 times
Wow.
But Gopadi, I have
but
one
they,
Go
question
ahead.
is coming to my mind as you were just mentioning that dynamics of chore in terms of Farak and others. But here you just mentioned that what is that? That Damodar chores are much more static compared to other chores. And that is why I asked this question regularization. The second question is coming to my mind is what is this community inertia to stay back there in spite of all these odds, flood and other things? Why they're still sticking to that land? Why they are not moving? That's also, it's just coming to my mind that did they come from the same kind of environment when they came from Bangladesh, or
Mainland.
because they are quite familiar with the environment, or they got accustomed to it over time, and now, in spite of all these, obstacles and hindrances, they're still trying to stay back. Any good reason?
Yeah, but probably Shumit, you missed the first part where I discussed that when people came to this part of the the world, like Bangladesh to India, they looked for land which is they knew the river system, they knew the how to raise crops, and they knew fishing kind of. So they
Yes.
always were choosing land which are nearer to the river. So that was the story for them. And it's not that they're romanticizing their way of life in chores. No, not at all. As I said
No.
already, made it clear, they are always in flux. They're trying their level best to go to the vitor, like the mainland.
Yes. Yes.
but
There is an
some
effort,
but
constant
as
effort.
long as they are unable to as long as they are unable to, they're trying to make their habitation as
Okay.
comfortable or as easy as possible. They're sometimes raising, building houses like brick houses, and probably I say, okay, think about it. They don't even think. But we interviewed some people, like, they say that, okay, I am building a brick house.
Mhm.
That means I am reducing the risk of washing away risk of washing away my house overnight during the flood.
But
And say, for example, when I have some money to buy a piece of land in the mainland area, if
mhm.
I sell this house, then probably I will get better money.
Better
Mm.
money.
So that is also their
Very
investment.
interesting. Very
That's
Yes.
interesting.
very interesting. So, yeah.
I think
And
that's how resilience is very well captured. When you say that they are living, they are more into the resilience, scholarship than the adaptation way of
And
yeah,
also
living.
the term adjustment. I
Ah.
yeah,
mean, that's very interesting.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That
Thank you.
brings and yeah, thank you so much, Sumit. And that brings an end to our conversation, because we must end at some point in time, because these conversations are extremely important. I wish we had a virtual chai on our, on our table to have the conversation going. But because of the paucity of the time, and also we have issues in editing later on if the video gets very longer, and I have to respect my junior fellows in that sense, and also taking your appointment for 1 hour and going overboard is also not so nice. So thank you so much, Gopa, for really opening your heart, and as well as really encouraging us in about the format of the conversation. I think because at W for W we are strongly of the opinion that water conversations are extremely crucial for conservation. It
Yes,
cannot be one way of
of
telling what is
present.
right or wrong.
Yeah.
And I think most of us who are, I will say, ground researchers, we are there, what is happening, to record and describe and then explain why it is happening. And that's where conversation and debates and discussions are extremely important. So to continue this, we welcome you to another session on Monday Munching with Women for Waters, because Mondays are dedicated to Women for Water. We have a large network of women. We are trying to build a collective of women in the water profession. And I am very proud to share with you, as a Water Resource Council of the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where at this moment I lead the council as a national president. And in there, we are discussing the lives, and not really the water works of the women, but the lives or the biographies of the women. And we bring them on board and we discuss with them how did they start, what are they doing, what are the opportunities and challenges, what kind of collaborations they are seeking. And that we called as Blue Lips, and that is Monday Munching with Women for Water, to acknowledge and appreciate the works of women in the water sector. And this Monday 28th at 5 p.m. IST, we are listening to the journey of Meenal Patel, who is Director Programs at WaterAid in India. And the joining link is already put in the chat box for you. Then in the forthcoming Wednesdays for Water, which is our signature series, by the way, we are known for that, and many people misunderstand W for W as Wednesdays for Water. And W for W for us is many abbreviations of V for Water, World for Water, Women for Water, Work for Water, Walk for Water, Wheels for Water, and so on and so forth. And we abbreviated it to W for W Foundation. But the signature series is Wednesdays for Water. And on May 15th, we are having a very interesting session for the first time in our 250 plus sessions, where we are talking about how many scholars are gamifying water matters to bring across the atrocities or the stress around water in a very simple way, to all kinds of stakeholders. And that is also at 5 p.m. IST on May 15th. And the joining link is also in the chat box. With this announcement for the coming week, I am really going to announce the end of the session. Again, with thanking all the participants of the session today and also our guest of the session, Gopa Samantha. Thank you so much for taking out
Thank
time
you.
and
Thank you very
enlightening us about the situation. And we wish you all the best with doing
Thank
your
you.
new scholarship on comparing the chores of different regions of the Delta. Thank you so much. Please take care,
Thank
all
you.
of you. We see each other very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.